When you think of genres in video games, what do you normally think about? You think about maybe multiplayer FPS games. Maybe you can think about battle arenas. But what if I told you there is one genre that has been kind of neglected within the industry that this indie developer has started to make a comeback with? I'm talking about the zombie apocalypse genre. And this indie developer has made a game that is in early access, mind you, but is really good right now, and it's called Surroundead. Dead at the end. You see what they did there? Now, I know that a lot of people would look at an early access title and kind of scoff away from it, but when you look at the price tag, $5 on a sale and then the normal being around 11 to 12 bucks, that's a steal in my book, especially for the zombie apocalypse genre. And honestly, I love every single bit of this game. Now, the first thing we should talk about is the gameplay. There's actually a lot to unpack with Surroundead, but I want to start off with saying that this game has a little bit of DNA of DayZ and State of Decay if they kind of mixed and mashed together, and it's actually pretty polished for a foundational part of their game. Mind you, not everything is polished within the game. Like I said before, it's an early access, but for the foundation parts of this game, it's pretty solid. Obviously, the main game is to kill zombies or, kill the infected areas within the map. And as you explore, you can loot different items like trash bags, containers, and everything like that before it gets dark. And there's also different variants of zombies to face. For example, there are variants that glow red and they are infected. If they die, they'll explode next to you and give you radiation damage. There are zombie bosses, there are regular zombies, there are crawlers. I haven't really explored all the zombie variants just yet, but I will admit it's pretty awesome that they have variants of zombies in the first place, because I've always hated when we had zombies and they were just really basic. I understand if you have zombies that are like overwhelming odds, like for example World War Z, that's a totally different concept. But if we're talking to like OG zombies and just all of them just being the same, it doesn't have the same effect of that thrill of trying to defend yourself against these zombies, because they're all just slow, dumb, and just walking towards you. With this game, however, since there are different variants, you have to think about different tactics and a way for you to be able to survive against them. A great example is one of the boss zombies called Paul Dart, which is right next to a mall. If you know, you know. After defeating him, I was able to get a lot of good loot, which is great because it allows me as a player to understand that if I find more of these guys, high tier loot may drop from them, and I really appreciate that. It allows me to kind of have some sort of reason to go for them instead of just looking at them and be like, I don't really want to deal with them. They're not an obstacle, they are loot walking around. And obviously every zombie you can loot up as well, from like food, water, maybe some weapons here and there that'll spawn randomly, and it'll depend on the variants that you defeat. And with the loot, it actually all resets every single day. So there is a day and night cycle, and as the day goes on and nighttime hits and then the next day comes, all the areas that you already looted will reset with new loot. So it means that you can actually go out of your way to sit in a spot, kind of scavenge around, and then try to get the best loot possible before you head out to a different location and try to find your way to somewhere better or to get to the end game stuff. Which again, this is very State of Decay coded, but I like it. And speaking of, there's actually the infected areas, which I kind of touched up on a little bit, but essentially the infected areas have a lot of zombies that'll spawn in. The whole point for you to do is to go in there, kill the side body bags or blood sacks, whatever you want to call them, and then kill the primary one so the infected area is cleared out. And as you go in there, there'll be a shit ton of loot and materials and stuff like that for you to use for the future of your run. Now, speaking of loot, a lot of the times whenever you do find loot, it's usually around scavenge around abandoned buildings, hospitals, and stuff like that. And it's not like DayZ where you run around for almost 2 hours to try to find a piece of apple before you die of hunger. But in reality, this game is very fruitful for items and materials and stuff like that. Since this is a single player game, obviously I wouldn't want to be super hardcore, but I do appreciate the challenges that we are faced of the zombies versus just trying to survive. It feels as though that you're more focused on trying to survive against the zombies instead of just trying to survive by your lonesome. But I do think that maybe some things could change a little bit. I digress. Now, as you find materials and stuff like that, there's a multitude of things that you can do with them. First of all, you can actually find materials and place them around the world no matter the circumstance. So say, for example, if you wanted, let's say, something to store items in or decorations for your house or a place you're living in, you can just grab that stuff, put it into your backpack, and then use it as decoration, which in my opinion is really cool. I appreciate the freeform placement as well. You can just place it anywhere you want without having a care in the world. Unlike some other games where if you don't have a settlement already built, you're kind of screwed. In this game, it's very freeformed. And speaking of safe zones and locations and stuff like that, you can make any place, anywhere, your home base, which is pretty cool. Not only could you make like malls or abandoned buildings your home, but you can also make just a whole straight up home from the ground up. And with this building mechanic, there are a ton of stuff you can build. You can build crafting tables, disassembly tables, construction tables, and a slew of other things as well for you to be able to build your own home however you see fit. Kind of adds a little like detail and features. So if you want to make like multiple bases across multiple parts of the land, you can do that and then be able to use them as like stopping points if you're traveling across the map. I think that's really cool. And there's some other things to note, obviously, like gathering materials. You can do that. You can go fishing. You can go to different settlements and trade items. And the end game stuff, I haven't gotten to fully yet, but I understand what it's going to be like because basically there are these bunkers laid across the map that you have to find, and then you have to find key cards in order to actually get into the bunkers to actually get the loot out of them. And I assume that a lot of the times they're going to be filled to the brim with a shit ton of good loot. I'm talking military gas masks, night vision goggles, LMGs, RPGs. There's a crap ton of weapons in this game. I forgot to mention about that. There's a ton of weapons within this game that look really great, even though it's a low poly game, but they're pretty detailed for what attachments you can add on them, the ammo they use, and the fire rate, and different durabilities on them. It honestly is pretty detailed on every single bit of the survival aspects on your weapons. And you have to find gun cleaning kits in order for your weapons to feel as though that they're at their peak performance. And I think that's really cool because I've always thought that when you have weapons in the zombie apocalypse, you would want to customize them however you see fit and what you think is going to be worthwhile. In my opinion, if I was to use a zombie apocalypse weapon, I would use a aluminum baseball bat, maybe with some attachments on it, maybe like a barbed wire or duct tape grips and whatever else. That's just me. That's what I would use, but other people would like to use different kinds of weapons. Now, using the weapons is a little iffy for melee. Melee has a variety of different kinds of melee weapons, but what I figured out is the combat system for melee isn't really all too fancy. It's very rudimentary with basically having attack and then heavy attack, and that's really it. There's no blocking. There's not really anything too spectacular about that, which is one of the criticisms I have for this game, is if you're trying to go for a melee build, chances are you're not going to have the best options because it's not really anything too special. So that's the only downside of the combat system, aside from weapons from firearms and flare guns and stuff like that. But I will say that the combat system is pretty clean when you use your own skills. Yes, there are RPG elements within this game. There's a multitude of skill sets and active skills that you can upgrade and use. For example, you can have different ways to parkour around areas. You can dodge roll. You can have different ways to increase your critical strike with melee or weapons in general. And then you have passive stuff, for example, like thieving when you're scavenging around and you don't want to make a lot of noise when you try to speed run through scavenging stuff. And there's also different toughness levels so you can resist how much damage you actually take. A lot of different abilities and skills that you have to really take in consideration, because when you upgrade these skills, a lot of them are pretty beneficial for your survival, especially for your character. If you're like permadeath mode, which is a mode you can do, it's actually pretty beneficial. And that's kind of where I go and lean and say, there's a little bit of a Project Zomboid mixed in with this game, and I'm kind of loving it as well. And now let's talk about a couple other things. For example, the game modes that you can play around with. There's the shooting range, the vehicle range, and then there's the regular game mode with different difficulty sliders on them. And I'm actually really appreciative of being able to have a debug mode where you can spawn in weapons or materials and whatever else in order for you to just kind of experiment around with all these kinds of stuff. Because in survival games, not a lot of times are you able to have a sandbox mode to mess around with items or materials or weapons to see what suits you the best, or even understand how they work. And especially with multiplayer zombie games like DayZ, you're not really going to get the chance to mess around with weapons because you're trying to survive instead of actually trying to find these materials and weapons to defend yourself with most of the time. But I do think it's really awesome that there is a creative mode essentially to just mess around and have a good time with. But now let's talk about the graphics. And you may be surprised about this, but I'm actually happy to say that this game is in Unreal Engine 5 and it runs buttery smooth with the graphics at hand. Obviously, the graphics don't look the best. It's not like hyper realistic or oh my god, it looks so gorgeous. I think it's really stylistic and gorgeous in its own right. I think the lighting is really beautiful, and the weather system, holy shit, man. Were you a fucking weather system guy for like AAA studios before? Because these are fucking phenomenal. You got different cloudy days, obviously you got like clear skies, maybe a really foggy day, then you get like heavy rain. Do you see these particle effects on the rain? It's fucking gorgeous. And if there was, I assume if there was ray tracing with this bitch, oh my god, I'd be really shocked that it would look that fucking good. And then it's not even that, we also have snow. We have snowstorms and snow physics. Yeah, you see that? Yeah, as I put my footsteps down, obviously I'd leave a trail. That's I don't know if that's really easy to do for a game developer, but did you know that if you wait long enough, your fucking footsteps that you leave are gonna be filled up by the snow? Like, that detail is something that I believe, as especially for an indie developer, that's phenomenal to look at. And I really appreciate that wholeheartedly. I believe that this game has huge potential. I'm just saying this right now, this game is better than the day before. I'm not going to hear a fucking another ounce of answers of people saying, oh no, it's actually worse. Shut the fuck up. This game's already better than this game, but that's really a low bar. If anything, I'm actually equating this game to some other zombie games right now. It's a little bit below State of Decay 2 for me, just a little bit, but I think as they continue on adding in stuff like quest systems, upgrade POI areas and stuff like that, I can see this game really going above and beyond what other zombie games could not do. And speaking of, let's actually talk about the future of this game. Now, with the developer, it seems as though that they're very communicative. They basically upload monthly about what's happening, of when the updates are going to happen, and I really appreciate that. Not many indie developers have that much of a communication problem. The only one I would actually say has a problem is the BattleBit community developers, and to be honest with you, I still haven't heard from them since then. I'm still waiting on for Project Overhaul with the teaser. Pretty pissed off about that, but if Overhaul is worthwhile, then maybe I might come back and swing by a little bit. But I appreciate that developers like this communicate straightforward, even with this one, saying, hey everyone, apologies for this slight radio silence on the next update. To put it simply, stuff is progressing, and I apologize for the delay with this do stuff happening IRL. I will have more news about the patch towards the end of the month. Look forward to finding the cure. I appreciate they're letting us know about, hey, we understand that, you know, there was a little bit of radio silence. I'm dealing with stuff IRL. Just give me maybe a few weeks or whatever to figure things out, and I'll let you know some updates. And it seems as though that last update just happened was earlier this month in October, and which is the second, about 0.8, which is supposed to be the newest update that's going to be adding in a few new things like new POIs, a revamp of the bunker system, and it looks like a couple other things as well. And that to me is worthwhile for the 12 bucks that is normally priced for this game, but it's on sale right now for 5 bucks. So I'm not saying get the game, but I don't know when another sale is going to happen for this game. Just an option. Just saying that now. I paid the full price before, and I think it's actually worthwhile. Now, I don't know if this game is going to go up in price. I'd assume that if a developer like this is working really hard to making this game worthwhile and trying to make a living off of it, I'd assume that the price would go higher as more content is added in, more polish, etc., etc. So I just want to say that this game, to the developer, it's awesome. I'm excited for the future. I'm hoping that you continue on communicating to us and letting us know what you're adding on next. Do what you got to do. I'm going to be staying put and kind of watching from a distance how you're making this game. And I might just play it in the background every so often, just vibing out with it, because it's honestly a really nice casual zombie experience. And I'm really excited to see the multiplayer and the co-op on your roadmap. I'm hoping that if you do add that it will be something that will compete with DayZ. I'm not saying that it will, but something like a server browser where people can make their own maps or make their own kind of server selections and rule sets, kind of like how DayZ does it. I think that'll be really worthwhile. And that's really about it, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you did like the video, press the like button, also subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments down below, what would you like to see next for me to review for either zombie games, FPS games, survival games? Just let me know in the comments down below. Or if you just want to say howdy ho, how's it going? Howdy ho, how's it going? But that's it for me. Deuces. Take care, everyone.